Hello YouTube, this is Frugal. This is my first impressions of AS16 or Active Sky 2016 and ASCA, which is Active Sky Cloud Art or Architect. I always forget what it is. Hang on, I can show you what it is. Cloud Art. We'll get onto that in a second. I first saw this obviously at Flight Sim Con a little while ago, and it's taken me a while to get the video together, partly because of pressures of life and everything else, but partly because I wanted to really spend some time with it. And you're going to see the results of that in a little while in this video, where I compare what it looks like in the sim between Active Sky 2016, Active Sky 2016 and ASCA, and Active Sky Next. Now, Active Sky 2016 is the latest in a long line of Active Skies from Hi-Fi Simulations. I'm a big fan of their weather platform. I've used them all, and the Active Sky series for me are the best. So most of my videos you'll see, in fact all of them, are with Active Sky in one variation or another. And I thought Active Sky Next was the bee's knees and unbeatable. How on earth could you improve on it? Well, Active Sky 16 is their answer to that. I was a little bit surprised actually to see this announced even. And then even more surprised to see it in person at Flight Sim Con. I'm just firing up my iPad here because I've got notes. I'm going to go through, before I go through the app, I'm going to go through all this and show you what all this does, and then I'm going to show you it in the sim. But I'm going to go through what they've listed on their website as the big 4 or 5 features. So first of all, in-cloud motion. This is actually a big deal. If you're driving a car and you go through fog, you don't tend to find your windshield just turns white and you can't see anything. You get wisps of fog, water vapor moving up the windshield, and you can see maybe a little bit and then it fades out and then you can see a little bit more. You know, that effect that you get going through fog. We've never really had that in FSX or Prepared, and Active Sky 16 brings that in, which is very lovely. P3D visibility smoothing and integration with volumetric fog. Okay. Scenarios, that's a new one. That's this little tab up here. We'll get onto that in a minute. High latitude cloud squeeze fixes, especially for FSX. If you actually ever flew at high latitudes in the sim with default clouds, you'd find there were very nasty, pointy, ugly things, and they fixed all that, which is great. And finally, map-based weather editing. There's also the whole ASCA integration piece, which we'll get onto in this video. Let me walk you through the UI here. It's not a revolution in terms of Active Sky, it's more an evolution. So in some respects it actually looks a little bit like a reskinning of Active Sky Next. In fact, if I go into options here, those of you familiar with Active Sky Next will recognize many of this stuff. The options are pretty much the same as they were with Active Sky Next. And that's an obvious question that's going to come up, by the way. Does this work with the weather radars that support Active Sky Next, such as the weather radar on the 777 from PMDG or the 737 yes indeed it does. But anyway, moving on. So it looks on the surface like a reskin. It's not. It's actually pretty slick what they've done here. If we go into weather control, this looks the same as it used to do. In fact, we used to just use the drop down here and you choose weather mode between live, historical or manual. I tend to use historical all the time, and I force historical time to sim time. That lets me record, say, a series of flights or re-record a flight and just load up the sim and set the sim time where I want that flight to be every time. And Active Sky Next, or in this case AS16, will kick in and set the weather appropriately, which is very lovely. Custom weather is their new thing. It lets you add custom weather on the map. What is this? Add new custom weather area from the map screen, right click to add an area. Let me show you how that works. Let's go over to the map, and here we are zoomed in on sunny Sanford, Florida. Now, how does one do this? I remember you can right click, and you can show weather here and it'll give you a summary of the weather at this position, which is ever so lovely. Or you can right click and you can add a custom weather area. So you can even type in the METAR, incidentally, which is kind of cool. So if you had a METAR for somewhere awful, you can actually bring that in and set awful weather in completely the wrong part of the world. But if you want to manually set individual weather parameters, you can do that this way. So we can set the wind direction, let's say 270 degrees, wind is at 12 knots, gusting to 25, a little bit of variance there. Turbulence, light turbulence, we do get turbulence in Florida because of the thermals and the thermal effect. You know, the ground beneath the aircraft gives off heat. Hot air rises, obviously, and you get that in varying rates in Florida because of vast amounts of swamp as well as black tarmac and cities and forests and stuff like that. So it's actually quite bumpy learning to fly here. But anyway, moving on. Surface temperature. 26, no, it's more like 32 today, and we'll set dew point at 30, which is going to give us quite a high humidity setting. Surface visibility, it's good, but I wouldn't say it's that good. 20 miles, statute miles. QNH, we can set that, or the altimeter in inches. And precipitation type, no precipitation rate, and no thunderstorms today, which is lovely. And now I can actually go and define the cloud. So if I wanted to just wipe out that and wipe out that, let's go ahead and put in some really high cirrus clouds, and we'll set them at broken 6/8, and we're going to put these at 15,000 feet, and they are 1,500 feet thick. Cloud turbulence, light. So you actually set up the turbulence now in the clouds, which is kind of cool. Click on OK, click on Next, click on Next, and it says how far do you want this weather to be applied around Sanford. So I'm going to set this at 25 miles around Sanford. Click on Next, click on OK. There we go. And it's developed this high cloud layer that I just defined all around Sanford, which is very, very lovely. We can turn off the clouds, obviously, and view the whole map. What else can we do here? Turn on and off airports, nav aids, precipitation, clouds, traffic, visibility. Tons of stuff that you can turn on and turn off here. Look at that. Absolutely insane map view. Very, very lovely. You can even change the forecast time here and see what it's going to do over time. Look at that. Oh, forecast rain coming in, which is correct, actually. Very cool. So again, not really dramatic revolution of how the custom weather worked and the map worked in Active Sky Next. More of an evolution, and a good one. I like that. We can click on conditions. Gives me a summary of the weather anywhere in the world, so KSFB. Very, very cool. So there's my weather. It's clear. That's what I just set up. There's the dew point, the temperature. Just set all that up. It's great. Incidentally, a feature not many people used, I think, in Active Sky Next is search. That still works the same as it did. Look, if I go into search here and I say I want to find snow, and I want to find heavy snow. There we go. Russia. USRR, is that Russia? Maybe not, but there's heavy snow there, and I could actually copy that meta if I wanted to now. How can I do that? Can I copy that? Yes, so let's copy that. Check this out. Surgut. I don't know where Surgut is, but apparently there's heavy snow there right now. So we can take that, go back over here to the map, and then get really crazy. So edit the custom weather area. I'm going to set the meta, and that should say at POS. So we'll do that. At POS. No, that's kind of foolish, isn't it? You can search for stuff and copy the meta, but the meta's in the wrong format to paste in. Even so, you get the idea, right? What else we got? Flight plan. I can set a flight plan. It's always a good idea to do this, by the way, if you're using any of the active skies. So if we were flying from KSFB all the way up to, I don't know, KGFK, and KLGA is the alternate. We're going to have a cruise altitude of 38,000 feet. There we go. Done. And we set the routing type, direct GPS, VOR to VOR, VOR to NDB, or I can actually load in a flight plan. So we'll say direct. In fact, let's do that, VOR to VOR. And it will figure out the weather at each point, which is very, very lovely. Briefing. Once you have a flight plan, you get a briefing. Weather briefing at the various VORs and waypoints along the route, which is great. And then the new feature, scenarios over here. Scenarios, now there's only a couple in here, as you can see, there's only 5. I expect they're going to add some, but these are pretty cool. So gusting winds, additional resources, German Federal Bureau of Aircraft accident investigation link. Gusting winds during approach represent a significant challenge for aviation. Gusts arise from turbulent mixing of air in the boundary layer and have their own speed and direction. In general, gust wind direction veers 10 to 20 degrees clockwise compared to the main wind direction. I never knew that. This scenario demonstrates an incident of an Airbus A320-11 flying from Munich to Hamburg in March 2008. Winds at the time of the incident were from 300 degrees at a speed of 32 knots, gusting to 47. Oh my goodness. This led to conditions marginal in respect to the maximum crosswind limitation of this aircraft. Discussion is made as to whether choosing runway 33 in this setting might have been safer, even though it had no precision approach instruments available. Pilot and command actually did select runway 33 after a go-around. This given that during gusting and due to clockwise wind direction change, this would increase the headwind component instead of the crosswind component, making the approach more stable. So that's the background on this particular scenario. What you need to do is load an airliner, an Airbus or a 737 in the sim of your choice. Obviously I'm prepared. Set it up for approach to land, gear down, flaps down 180 knots, established on a localizer is what it's going to do. So that's it. To fly the scenario, you start a sim session in the aircraft of your choice at any location, get it in the recommended configuration, so on the ground, I guess engine spooled up, flaps down, gear down, and then press start scenario here in Active Sky, and it will reposition you and set you up to try these challenges. And there are some very interesting ones here. So microburst, for example, severe icing, spatial disorientation, getting lost in clouds, and wake turbulence. So you can try out all these different environments or environmental situations if you've never been put into those situations before, and try them out. I do hope they add a lot more in here. That would be very cool, but that's a new feature of Active Sky. Anyway, let's jump on into the sim, and I'm going to show you some clips I did of a flight from Orlando Sanford up to Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is a flight that is commonly done by Allegiant. Obviously didn't do it in Allegiant, I did it in just generic whatever Airbus, Aerosoft Airbus. But I did the flight 3 times with Active Sky Next, Active Sky 2016, and Active Sky 2016 and ASCA. And I want you to look at the differences here. I'll talk you through them. Okay, so this is Active Sky Next, and I had obviously everything installed, like Rexsoft clouds and so on and so on. The forecast was pretty clear given that it's Sanford. There were some storms off the coast, however. Looks pretty good. Let's jump on over to Active Sky 2016 though. Now this looks slightly different because I found I needed to update Prepare to 3.3 to get AS 2016 working. Notice the sky is a lot clearer, which is actually, for the weather conditions, more realistic. But then, this is ASCA. We put in ASCA and it's not as realistic, to be honest, but having said that, the cloud formations actually are more realistic. Those high, wispy, threaded clouds higher up is actually pretty reminiscent of how the skies look here in Florida on a clear day. Let's jump back over to ASN. So this is heading out towards the coast before we start our turn and climb on up to cruise. In the distance, there were some thunderstorms. You could see one there. There was a little glimpse of lightning. There it is again, directly in front of us. Look at the clouds as well. They have a kind of a pattern to them. They look a little bit mechanical, a little bit synthetic. You see that? But this is what we were always used to, and it was the standard. Compare that to AS 2016 here, and again, we have a clear sky, but you still see thunder off in the distance. Now that was kind of strange, and I wondered whether AS 2016 was actually even working at this point. But we do have the wispy clouds. It's very, very subtle. And that subtlety, again, I believe, is a lot more realistic than a prominent, here is a big white fluffy cloud. It actually looks a lot better. But once again, as soon as you add ASCA into the mix, things get very dramatic. There. Now, look at those clouds in the distance. They're anvils. They're anvil in shape, which is the correct cloud shape for producing a thunderstorm. And again, not that uncommon here in Florida. So, although not as realistic, looking out of the window, looking up in the sky, comparing to what we're seeing in the sim, although not as realistic as what was actually in the sky that day, it's actually pretty good. I kind of like it. It's a lot more dynamic. The cloud shapes tend to be more fitting. There's a lot less uniformity. Anyway, climbing up to cruise. Further on in our trip here, Active Sky Next. We've got some typical Active Sky Next and Rexsoft clouds, fluffy clouds in there, and it all looks kind of lovely, little cotton balls floating in the air. This is the standard, and this was the state of the art for many people. Put in Active Sky 2016 again, it's again not as dramatic, but perhaps more realistic. So we have low-level cloud underneath us. We have that hazing going on, that kind of a fog layer going on, and I find this to be more convincing. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's up to you. However, switch on over to ASCA. Oh my goodness, much more dramatic. And this is kind of cool. As we flew along the legs here, ASCA was loading in dynamic themes and loading in dynamic cloud textures and changing the look of those clouds and the look of the sky as the route progressed. This is, again, it comes down to what are you seeking in your sim. If it's ultra realism matching the sky overhead, I'm not convinced ASCA does that. But I personally find flying with ASCA is a much more compelling visual experience. My preference. Okay, welcome back. So obviously, you get the most visual difference once you integrate with ASCA. So what is ASCA? Well, let me show you that. ASCA is running down here. Now on the surface, this is just a texture replacement, nothing crazy. So you've got various texture themes that you can load in here, and it changes the themes and the colors of everything in the sim, and it's very, very lovely. The cool thing, though, actually ties into a feature of ActiveSky 2016. If I bring up full dynamics, actually I was using global automatic in the videos you just watched. What happens here, this theme globally applies weather-influenced textures automatically throughout your flight. Now that is a new feature in ActiveSky 2016, is that you can load themes and you can load weather themes and textures and stuff during the flight without any issues at all. Using ASCA, it will do it for you. So if I take off in Florida, I'm used to very clear blue skies and wispy clouds and none of the murkiness that you might get in Seattle. But if I'm flying to Seattle, as I pass over the country, it will start to change the themes, change the coloring, change the cloud types, and make it much, much more realistic. ActiveSky 2016 and ASCA combined is revolutionary, not evolutionary. We've never had a product that does this ever before. It's very, very cool, very dynamic. Now, as I said in the video you just watched, I'm not sure how realistic it is. Realistically, when you're simming, it's all a question of what you want. If you want completely full realism, you can probably get away with just using ActiveSky 2016. I prefer how it looks in the sim to ActiveSky Next for sure. But if you want something that looks dramatic, as well as perhaps feeling very real, like I said, I'm not sure the ASCA stuff makes it as real as it would have been, but it certainly looks very good, and it certainly looks very realistic. And I like it. I just generally like it. So, my conclusions in general, obviously being a big fan of ActiveSky, and by the way, the caveats, I bought these, I wasn't sent these, I'm that much of a fan, I bought them both. Being a big fan of the ActiveSky series, I would of course recommend that you look at, my dog is snoring, I would of course recommend that you look at ActiveSky 2016. If you already have ActiveSky Next and you're a little bit strapped for cash and you're not sure, should I go and spend the money on AS16? I don't know, probably not. If you can afford it, then go for it. If you can't, then don't. It doesn't give you anything dramatic other than that dynamic theme loading, the ability to load themes mid-flight, which is kind of cool. However, for me, AS16 and ActiveSky Cloud Art is a winning combination. I can't imagine now not flying with those two running at all times. I only have them for prepared right now. I am going to wait until YouTube payday and then go pick up the FSX versions as well. Very, very happy with what they've done. Anyway, let me know in the comment section below what you think. All these weather engines that get updated every year or 2 years, is it worth keep spending the money to keep on upgrading, or should we just find something and stick with it? Over to you. As always, my name is Frugal. Thank you so very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you all very soon.